Recently, the Nevada Current broke some news about a federal investigation into some alleged illegal gambling and suspect conduct at Las Vegas casinos. And seriously, this story could be a whole HBO series. It's got all sorts of twists and turns. A minor league baseball player who ran an illegal sports betting ring, black market data dealing, maybe even money laundering through promotional casino chips. I mean, they're still uncovering how far this thing even goes. So today on CityCast Las Vegas, we're talking with Dana Gentry. She's the journalist who broke the story. She helps us understand how this whole scheme worked and what the investigation could mean for Las Vegas. It's Wednesday, August 16th. I'm David Figler, and here's what Las Vegas is talking about. Nevada Current reporter Dana Gentry, welcome to CityCast Las Vegas.
Thank you for having me, David.
Well, Dana Gentry, the tables have turned. You have interviewed me so many times over big corruption stories in the courts, and now here you are, and I get to ask you some hopefully probing questions about what I think is mounting to be a big controversy in our city. You've written about it for the Nevada Current. This whole mess is something about a possible illegal gambling scheme taking place within our casinos involving athletes, casino personnel, maybe even bosses. Dana, what sort of funky shit is going down in our casinos this time?
Well, I think it's better described as perhaps links locally to an illegal gambling ring busted in California that was operating for 2 decades, almost 2 decades.
Wow.
It was centered in Costa Rica, so there are international ties as well. And the gentleman who got busted in California is a former minor league baseball player named Wayne Nix. And you'll have to excuse me, David, because as you know, my knowledge of sports is quite limited.
About my knowledge of sports, so we'll muddle through it together. But okay, he was a former baseball player of some sort named Wayne Nix.
The Oakland A's farm team. And,
oh, great. Nice tie.
Yeah,
anyway.
Yeah. And so they're coming here, as you know, the Oakland A's. And so he was catering to professional sports people with this gambling ring. They were his customers as well. That is
like athletes and the
athletes. Yes.
Okay.
And I think they're pretty restricted in there. I don't know how much they can gamble. And I know they're not supposed to be gambling on their own sports, obviously. So that's an interesting aspect of it. But the tie here dates back allegedly to the MGM Grand back in the 2000s when Scott Sabella was there. And
what was Sabella's role at the MGM Grand during that time frame?
I believe he was the president at one time, maybe from 2012 until about 2020 when they did some major budget cutting.
Right. So definitely a high-profile gaming person in our community.
Absolutely. And so one of the allegations is that hosts as well as gaming executives, hotel executives were using promo chips and other casino assets such as comps, airfare, things like that, to pay off their own gambling debts to Wayne Nix and to his gambling ring. So MGM, I suppose, could be looked at as a victim of this, right?
Oh, interesting. And I want to just kind of, because we've mentioned two different groups here. So this Wayne Nix, who we should mention has pled guilty to an illegal bookmaking operation out of the federal court, was taking wagers apparently from professional athletes. But what I'm hearing from you is that he was also taking some kind of wagers from casino executives too, or is that just on the golf course?
Yeah, personally on the golf course, and then the allegation that has surfaced from two sources, one at the state and then another one who is, I guess, a confidential informant type of person, is that the hosts were providing Wayne Nix with player gambling data, which would include banking information, credit information, all kinds of confidential things that they are not supposed to let out of the casino.
Okay.
and that the gambling operation was using that to issue credit to these gamblers, and that the hosts were encouraging their own customers to bet with this illegal ring. Now, one would ask, sports betting is legal in a lot of places now. Why would you want to do that when you could just go to a book here? The difference is if you go to a sports book at the Bellagio or at MGM, you have to put the money up front when you make the bet.
Correct.
Whereas if you call your bookie, your illegal bookie, you're riding on credit. So you don't have to come up with your losses until the next week when you want to bet again, I guess.
Yeah, no, I can imagine there's a lot of reasons why some people, and legalized sports betting across the country is a fairly recent development. I can imagine a lot of scenarios where people wouldn't want to bet at casinos. They didn't want to be known for betting. Maybe, like you said, the professional athletes involved might not want to run afoul of whatever league rules they have or other sort of restrictions. And then also, there's that whole idea, like you said, about getting credit and maybe having a different sort of line, the betting spreads and things of that nature. I mean, that's how illegal bookmakers thrive. But, you don't tend to associate that with actual licensed gaming employees in casinos, not only doing it themselves, but encouraging their customers to do it. So this sounds like a huge, huge mess.
And providing the confidential data, I think, is a major concern.
Yeah, no, that's the one that really caught my mind too. So, when I first read your story, I'm reading about these promotional gaming chips, and for those who don't know what that is, it's essentially free play that you could use to wager and win. They don't have inherent cash value themselves, but it's something that the casino offers to incentivize people to play. You mentioned comps and airfare, that sort of thing.
And the promo chips, I think one of the problems with that, and one of the reasons that Homeland Security may be involved in this investigation, is because they can be used to launder money. And
yeah.
So you could go to a baccarat table, I'm told, and if you had a friend with you and you had been given $50,000 in promo chips, you could each take
opposite sides.
25,000, yes, and bet the opposite sides. Or you can do the same thing on a roulette table that pays 35 to 1 odds, I guess. And there's 36 numbers to bet, I guess, and it's basically a wash. So you're washing the money, taking those chips, turning them in at the casino cage for cash.
So there's a lot going on here, Dana. For our listeners, just to sum it up, there's an illegal bookmaker who probably has a whole cadre of athletes and maybe even casino employees in his little black book. And there are casino executives who are accused of misusing casino tools like promotional chips and comps and the like to essentially pay off debts and even share data about players in the casino and even encourage players in the casino to not bet at the casino, but to bet through this illegal bookmaker. Is that a good summary?
I would say so, except for the accused part. I don't think nobody's actually been accused yet. There have been no charges filed. So,
okay.
With the exception of Mr. Nix and his associates.
Right.
What interested me in this story in the first place is, I don't know if you remember, but last year I reported on a gambler who was arrested at Resorts World after he took somebody's phone, and it turned into quite a big deal. And through that story, I learned that a taco shop at Resorts World was owned by a man named Peter Stroge, and his son, Dave Stroge, who was the manager, according to court documents, of the taco shop, is a convicted illegal gambler who admitted to money laundering. And those are generally not the kind of people you want hanging around.
No, but that also sounds strangely familiar when we're looking at what Wayne Nix has pled guilty to as well.
Exactly.
And it does seem like Resorts World, for being a pretty new property on the scene, has been in the news for a bunch of, let's say, curious decisions when it comes to personnel and projects and just how they're living their life over there. But I'm wondering, is the investigation that you're writing about, is it focused on Resorts World because Sabella is over there? Or is it just a coincidence that because Sabella is over there, he's part of the discussion of, your investigation?
So I was very careful when I spoke with my source at the state to confirm that he was asked specifically about Sabella, and he was. And what
Okay.
I believe has happened now is that the investigation is widening at Resorts World to start looking into vendors, how they received those deals, how they were negotiated. Does Resorts World have standards? It's an international company. They must have standards for selecting vendors. But when you look at it, and I'm not casting any aspersions, but one of your colleagues in the legal field, David Chesnoff, who has absolutely no experience running a cigar bar, owns a cigar bar at Resorts World with the son, with a man named Giuseppe Bravo, who is the son of Joseph Angelo Bravo, a convicted drug smuggler. So,
I mean, that's a lot of loose dots there, Dana. I mean, anyone could go
okay,
buy a business and run a business, and just because someone's someone's son, I'm gonna push back on that a little bit.
okay, well, then let's look at it this way. If you're opening one of the biggest hotels in North America, you're going to probably want to have the best chefs, the best restaurants, correct?
Sure.
The Italian restaurant at Resorts World is owned by Bernie Schiappa, who used to run the Fletcher Jones import dealership. So, and has no experience as a restaurateur that I'm aware of. He's no Wolfgang Puck.
Okay, well, I'll file that back under curious decisions then,
Okay.
but not necessarily suggesting illegal conduct. But I just,
Again,
I guess,
David, I would assume Resorts World, being an international corporation,
yeah.
has some protocol for these things.
Oh,
So,
right. And one would hope it's so regulated, right? And if
right.
they are under scrutiny, I guess I want to get a cleaner sense of what casinos may be involved, because from what our discussion has led to so far, and not to belabor the point, it sounds like a lot of eyes are on MGM in the past, and some of those MGM employees, including Sabella, seem to have moved over to Resorts World now. Resorts World might be, getting some look at. Are there other casinos that are mentioned or coming up in your investigation with regard to this issue?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay.
No. And I think, when you think about MGM, it's a large corporation with a bunch of hotels.
Yeah,
So,
no, they certainly don't have a want of hotels in our on our strip. That's for sure.
and the
Now,
other thing is that,
yeah,
both Resorts World and MGM are vying for very coveted, highly coveted licenses in southern New York, from what I understand. So,
yeah.
those I would assume that this may come up in that licensing procedure.
Dana, one of your sources in your story in The Current said that this sort of stuff has been going on for decades. Why has it taken this long to get this sort of traction and eyes focused on Vegas?
I think probably because it's just accepted, and it takes somebody from out of the state to be able to get something done without political influences getting involved and trying to derail it. From what I understand, a general counsel of one of the hotels has made a call to the federal prosecutors in California trying to do just that. So, and I don't think it worked. But Juice talks in Vegas, in Nevada, you know that. And I think that's why, because
I
it's
do
an
know
out of
that.
state operation now.
I do say that all the time. So I'm glad you said it this time. So could this hurt Las Vegas?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I think there are aspects of this story that could hurt Las Vegas. I think take out the Resorts World and MGM aspect of it and just look at the illegal gambling ring conducted by a former athlete involved in professional sports and the Oakland A's, and then catering to professional sports people. I think that's damaging in itself in a city that has legal sports betting and is embracing professional sports teams. So that's just one aspect of it. But what it's going to turn into, I don't know. I mean, this has the potential, in my opinion, if everything that I'm hearing is true, to turn into a very big story.
Interesting. So what is the status of the investigation now, as you understand it?
From what I understand, it's widening, and people are being interviewed, and subpoenas are going out. And I am told, and have not confirmed, that there have been visits to Resorts World and that boxes have been removed But as I said, I have not been able to confirm that.
Oh,
So
boxes being removed is never a good sign.
that's never a good sign.
I can't help but think, I mean, as much as it's interesting to me that there might be this sort of, as we say in the old country, mishigas happening in some of these casinos with, breaking the rules and doing all this other stuff. If there might not be this other big thread about professional athletes gambling, which always makes the news in big ways, or college athletes. And I'm wondering, in the Wayne Knicks case, was there any allegation that when he pled guilty to illegal bookmaking, that he had like a little black book of names of well-known athletes?
Yes, there was some indication of that. But as you said, there were also a lot of sealed documents in that case. So I'm unable to get to some of them.
Interesting. Well, Dana, you've been around it for a long time. Like you said, your dad was a prominent casino executive in the 60s and 70s through the 80s in Las Vegas. Ash Resnick, everyone who is a watcher of history in Las Vegas knows that name. And you've been involved in these kind of big corruption stories for a really long time. Whether or not anyone specifically in Las Vegas gets in trouble, what implications do you think it'll have for how we do business in Las Vegas casinos?
I think that depends a lot on the Gaming Control Board and how it reacts, how local regulators react to this, and whether they take a defensive position or welcome the assistance. I think there's a lot of secrecy in our gaming regulation that probably is not good for the industry when it comes to things like problem gambling. I think there are probably a lot of complaints that are filed that we never hear about. In fact, I know there are because I hear from people who file them and they are sealed. So I think that anytime a host is involved in providing promo chips to a player, there needs to be a lot of oversight or, the same thing with comps probably too. But I think those controls are probably a little more rigorous than on the promo chips. And the thing with the promo chips is if you are high enough in the operation, I think you can override whatever controls may be in place.
Interesting. So. Senior reporter for the Nevada Current, Dana Gentry, keeping your eyes on the story and hopefully come back if there's any new developments. Thanks so much for joining us on CityCast Las Vegas.
Thank you, David. I appreciate you having me.
That's all for today here on CityCast Las Vegas. If you enjoyed the show, share this wild ride of an episode on your favorite social media platform. And hey, tag us too. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Take care. How'd I do as a journalist, Dana?
You're a great journalist, David. I wish you'd be a lawyer still.